Welcome to the 50 Shades Greener podcast, the show where three widely different worlds collide in the most chaotic way possible. Hosted by me, Raquel, the Spanish eco queen adopted by Ireland 20-something years ago, Kiri, or Amsterdam-based loony with zero filter, and Nasia, the Dublin-based Indian princess bringing a spice and sense. We're here to unpack culture, identity, sustainability, and all the madness in between. Three women, three microphones, and damn it.
Keep going.
Three women, three
No editing.
backgrounds. No editing. Three women, three backgrounds, one microphone, and absolutely no filter. So let's begin. Today, we're going to talk about the way corporations are trying to poison us. That's the title anyway. So I like to kick things off today. And my pickle really with all this is about food and the broken food systems that we have created. Well, that some corporations have created, should I say. So if we take something as simple as bread, for example, for most of human history, it just had four ingredients: flour, water, salt, and yeast. That's it. But today, a typical supermarket loaf can contain 20 or more ingredients. Not because bread got more complicated, but because the system around it got more complicated. When the goal is mass production, and shipping and storing food for weeks and weeks to no end. You just don't make bread anymore. You kind of engineer it to last that long in shelves. If you zoom out far enough within the global food systems, it stops looking more like farms and markets, and it starts looking more like a handful of corporate logos. Today, just a few in multinational giants, companies like Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, and Unilever, dominate huge portions of what we eat and drink every single day. And in fact, across many everyday grocery items, those four companies control more than 40% of the markets. So what might look like endless choices in our supermarket shelves are often just different brands owned by the same parent company competing with themselves. And it doesn't stop just at packaged food. The deeper you go into seeds, fertilizers, processing and distribution, the more concentrated it becomes. In sectors like meat, just a few corporations such as Tyson Foods, JBS, and Cargill dominate supply chains, while the largest distributor, Sysco, helps funnel food across global markets. In 2025, Tyson Food recorded profits of 1.1 billion. JBS, the world's largest meat company, registered profits of 2 billion in 2025. And here is a killer blow for me. Cancer Research UK says processed meat is the finished cause of cancer, especially bowel cancer. And it estimates that around 13% of bowel cancer in the UK are linked to eating processed meats. The WHO, the World Health Organization Cancer Agency, classifies processed meats as carcinogenic to humans. The review estimated that each 50-gram portion eaten daily, roughly like a hot dog, a few rashers, or a couple of slices of ham, is linked to an 18% higher risk of cancer. And maybe that's the real story, is how something so essential to life, like food, can become one of the most concentrated, controlled, and profitable systems on earth while making people sick. And to make things worse, I'm sorry, I finished shortly. I know I'm ranting a lot today, but to make things worse, in the 18th of May this year, so just in a couple of weeks from the recording of this podcast, something really significant is about to happen in Europe, and most people haven't heard a word about it. The EU is preparing to vote on new rules around genetically modified crops, or more precisely, what they are now calling new genomic techniques. These are crops edited in a lab using tools like CRISPR, designed to be faster growing, more resilient, maybe even better for the climate, they say. So it sounds like progress, but here is when it gets really uncomfortable. And that the proposed system that the EU is going to vote on, some of these genetically edited foods could end up on supermarket shelves without being labeled as genetically modified at all. No sticker, no warning, no way for you or I standing in the supermarket to know the difference. So the question for me then isn't just what we're eating, but it's also who gets to decide what we're being told about what we eat, and where does the power of large corporations ends and our own rights as, human rights of the food that we eat start. So some supporters of this new legislation say that this is innovation, that it's about keeping European agriculture competitive and adapting to climate change. That really pisses me off that they're using climate change to bring this in.
Yeah.
But critics, including myself, we know that it weakens transparency, that it chips away a consumer choice, and that it quietly kind of redraws the lines between what is considered natural and what isn't considered natural. So that's my rant for the day. I opening as to what episode is about. But Kiri, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I I think it's just shocking, that this is even up for debate, just that it could be that fruits and vegetables that have been genetically modified can be going into the supermarkets completely unlabeled. That shouldn't be up for debate. And like you said, there are supporters of it that call it innovation, they call it climate change resistance, they call it all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, we've only been here for a little blip, right? And as the world adapts, so will we, so will our food systems. And genetically modifying food for me is such a no-go, because it's just, I want to be eating more naturally,
Natural
right? And there's
food. Yeah,
also, they haven't done long-term studies on what this modifying is going to be like, right? If you're
this is it.
genetically modifying crops to be more resistant to pests, so they don't want to eat it,
Yeah.
and then we eat it, like, I don't know, I'm
I
going to
think
trust the bugs.
we're the only species in the world, obviously, that is spray poison on top of our food to stop other species from eating it, and then we eat
And
it
then we
ourselves.
eat it. It's wild. It's wild. I trust the bugs. I trust the birds. If they
More.
don't want it, I
I
shouldn't
don't want
want
it.
it. Do you know?
Yeah.
Even if I'm out walking in a forest and there's a bush full of berries, those are probably poisonous, because if they haven't been picked through,
Yeah.
then they're not for me. And that's how humans have learned to eat. That's how we
Yeah.
discovered what is like what we can digest, what we can't digest. I mean, there's probably a little trial and error, but mostly it was seeing other it was mostly seeing other organisms eat it and then going, oh, we can probably do that too. Nom, nom, nom. I didn't die. Great. Now we have
Great.
blueberries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it beggars belief, and one thing, like, it's, when we look at, say, what's allowed or not allowed in labels and stuff like that in the United States, for example, compared to the EU, I mean, we are a beacon, you say, of healthier food systems, because, we have a lot more control, we have a lot more regulations that they have in the United States, but it seems to me like we're moving towards that kind of
Yeah.
food industry now, and I just
Yeah.
find that extremely dangerous.
Under the guide, you mentioned that some of the supporters call it, they were keeping the EU agriculture market competitive. Our
I
food
know.
system should not be competitive. That's not
It should be
that's not what the
healthy.
goal should be, exactly. So yeah, that's
Yeah. It's a bit devastating. But Nasi, I know you did some more research as well on this, maybe, and other aspects of our lovely food systems.
Yeah. I think in doing this research, I just became very uncomfortable. The more I was reading up, I was just like, it's not food anymore that we're
Yeah.
eating, right? It's just engineered something. It's not even food, because it's just designed to last longer. It does taste better, but frankly, it's just making us eat more and more, right? And it's not
Hmm.
it's not to our benefit, it's not about calories. Let's just say that. It's not about calories, it's not about becoming fat. It's a different kind of fat that your system is finally then harboring, because I feel this engineered or ultra processed food that we find on our grocery market shelves is just engineered in a way that is in opposition to the biology of our bodies,
yeah.
right? Which is where things like hormonal disruptors become such a huge thing. So when I started doing the research for this podcast, the one thing that kept coming up was the endocrine disrupting chemicals, which are EDCs. And these are basically compounds that interfere with our hormonal systems. And they are found not just in the food, it's actually found in the packaging of the food. So every time you're ripping off a plastic wrapper from any food that you're eating, be it a quick takeaway meal or if it's a chocolate bar, It's just additives that you are eating along with what is that engineered food. And then there are these chemicals called bisphenols and phthalates, and they are all shown to just mimic or they interfere with the hormones, which is estrogen and insulin. And all of that matters because our hormones are basically regulating everything from our metabolism to our appetite to how even our body stores fat. And when those signals get disrupted because of this highly ultra processed food that we're consuming, over time, what happens is that, as I think Kiri mentioned, is that you just end up having a lot of chronic diseases. So you have weight gain, you have insulin resistance. So the system is just built in a way that I think is, and I think Kiri, you will cover that, is making the pharmacies richer, because the food is making us sicker. It's sending us to the hospitals. It's getting us to go buy more medicines, right? So they are in a way poisoning us. I don't think that was the intention, but it's just come to a point where we're just eating food, which, like I said, is not food anymore. And it's quite alarming, to be honest, because I feel the whole engineering of the food is even changing the basic structure of our potatoes and our tomatoes. And I quickly add here. So when I was looking it up, I found that even ketchup, for that matter, you think that it's just pure tomatoes, but it's not. There's tomato concentrate, there's sugar in it, there's vinegar, salt, all kinds of stabilizers, right? There are some brands out there for whom sugar can make up close to a quarter of that product. So yes, there are some tomatoes in there, yeah, but it's a long way from something that we'd even make at home. So yeah, I think it's a case of just being very aware of what you're purchasing from the market, really reading through the ingredients, because like you said, bread needs just 4 ingredients. It doesn't need 20, right? So if it does, you need to, call the shots and be like, okay, I'm not purchasing this. I'm just going to buy it myself. Because the more of this engineered food that you're eating, you're just wrecking your body, because the body doesn't know how to recalibrate itself when you're poisoning it, over time.
Yeah.
It's just so hard though. Like I have often gone to the supermarket and you're there reading ingredients and it's like, Jesus Christ, I need 2.5 hours to do my shopping if I have to read all everything that's there, And I know we say it's not about weight gain, not just about weight gain, but I read a report yesterday while investigating for this podcast that 61% of adults in Ireland are actually overweight or obese, which I thought it was huge. And that is costing them, the HSE and the health system, over €1 billion every year. So the food systems are making us fat and making us sick, and that's costing us then in the healthcare sector, so it's and it's just this continuous then hamster wheel that never stops, and the worse the food gets, the sicker we're going to be, and the more we're going to spend on healthcare, and the more people will not be able to afford healthcare eventually.
And it kind of goes into what, I will talk about this because, it makes us sicker. And I think Nazia has the point. I don't think the intention is to poison us. I think that's just a side effect of putting profitability above everything. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like produce, make it profitable. If it makes you sick, it's kind of like, well, what are we going to do?
Or making money.
Yeah, exactly. And then
somebody's always making money.
And then big pharma, which we all know, I have big hate for big pharma, is on the other side. Is on the other side, kind of reaping those benefits, right? So as Nazia mentioned, our food is making us more sick. We are seeing so much more chronic illness. Certain foods do cause cancers, right? And then you have big pharma on the other side just pumping out drugs to fix that, right? Yeah. But if we're talking about the systems that we live in, that we humans have built for ourselves poisoning us, then I would be remiss not to take a swing at big pharma. Because
you would not miss that opportunity, Kiri.
I never would. Big pharma and the Industrial Revolution. I don't know. But it's crazy to me, right? Because there are so many, we talk about food systems and eating naturally and all these things, but on the healthcare side of that, on the other side, it's the exact same thing. We want to be natural. Like there are so many systems in place, there's medicines that have been studied for thousands of years that work, but you can't patent it. You can't patent meditation or exercise or herbalism, right? You can't charge people a whole bunch of money to go out and, grow their own herbs and make teas from it that help with inflammation or depression or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just, it's a big thing. So if we talk about a little bit of figures for you. There was a 2023 study that found that exercise, for example, is 1.5 times more effective than medication for reducing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and psychological distress.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now, it's worth noting, it's worth noting that antidepressants are among the most prescribed drugs in the entire world.
Yeah.
Wow.
With long lists of side effects. I don't know if
Yeah.
any of you have ever, in the US, it's very common. You get these commercials for drugs, and half the commercials just being like, may cause sexual dysfunction and weight gain and depression and death
Yes.
and cardiac arrest, and it's just these long lists.
Oh my God.
And that's exactly, antidepressants are they're no exception. There's long lists that go with it, and then if you look at it and just go, oh, doing a little bit of exercise is 1.5 times more effective than that. No side effects. You look better, you feel better. Like, it's a no-brainer. But doctors aren't, a lot of doctors and a lot of medical systems aren't prescribing that because they don't make money. Big pharma doesn't make, nobody makes money. I can work out from home. I can go for a run. I can go for a walk for free.
Yeah.
Another study, which I think is worth noting, is, so if you look at type 2 diabetes, it generates approximately $760 billion in global pharmaceutical revenue. Just type 2 diabetes alone. So then there was a study, it was a trial study published in 2018 by Newcastle and Glasgow universities, and they found that a structured diet intervention, so cleaning up your diet, losing weight, eating healthy, put 46% of type 2 diabetes patients into full remission after year 1.
Wow.
That is nearly half of the entire study, almost half. Just eating better, exercising, losing weight, full remission. And it was 36% after 2 years. So almost, if you add that together, that's almost 100% of the people in that trial study that were in full remission, no diabetes found, just from intervening their lifestyles, their diet changes.
Yeah.
Wow. I know you've both come from a very nice place, I think, to say they're not poisoning us on purpose. But when you hear those figures of profit and revenue from people being sick, it does beg the question to me. I'm sorry, I'm very cynical of the corporate world and these 10, 20 people that own everything we do. Are you sure they're not trying to poison us all so that we go and buy all this medication and spend all this money on healthcare?
Yeah.
I
Still, I do
know.
hope, people won't do it deliberately, they wouldn't make us sick. And I also feel food is not supposed to make you sick. We always forget the idea that, or the fact rather, not the idea that food means nutrition. Right? It's meant to keep our bodies healthy. But unfortunately, like we've been talking, it's engineered, right? So the minute you're adding chemicals to it, you are reversing its natural state of being, which is not going to align with what our biological needs are, right? Which is what is making us sick. So I think we also need to address the fact that given that it's an 8 billion population, there are so many mouths to feed you, and we have limited resources, right? So we're just putting that strain on our farmers, on agricultural production. When that's not able to meet our demands and needs, you have to rely on chemically induced food that can be engineered fast and can fill up the shelves faster.
See, that's the system's fault as well, Nasia. Sorry, Kira, I know you're trying to come in. But it's the bloody system again. So I was reading about agriculture here in Ireland, and in 1990 there was over 600 commercial vegetable growers in Ireland, right? Now what happened is that supermarkets aren't paying them enough for their lovely local food produce, and they're buying then, oranges from Egypt and apples from bloody Spain, because they get them cheaper. And so now, out of 600 commercial vegetable growers, right now there is, 73 left. 73 producers in Ireland. Imagine. So it's and that's the system. Again, supermarkets are looking for bigger margins. They're
I
not paying
know.
the farmers, they're getting the cheaper genetically modified fruit. Same as happened with that Mercor deal as well, and the beef, they prefer to
Yeah.
get cheaper beef from Brazil when we have the most beautiful beef grass-fed in Ireland. So that's the system doing that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
I
Yeah, maybe
also,
that's the thing. Like, we're changing our own thinking here because I came
yeah,
into this thinking that,
I
okay, you
know.
know what? It can't be that bad, but clearly these figures show us otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. It's also because, not, you mentioned that, trying to feed 8 billion people, with the amount of food waste, we can feed 8 billion
But
people.
yes, we can.
Of
Yeah.
course we can. We have
Yeah.
to, the current system cannot.
Yeah.
I mean, even it could,
Mm.
because we're just wasting food left and right. It's
Yeah.
Everywhere.
all
Yeah.
convoluted, it's all twisted. And I know I'm also changing my own mind. So I was like, no, no, they're not poisoning us. But now
Yeah.
conspiracy theorists, I'm like, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if agriculture and big pharma are in cahoots.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
actually going to ask that. I wonder, is the likes of Unilever, do they also own brands of medication?
We might have,
I'm
I know we might have to
investigating
continue
Yeah.
this.
this. I know we might have to
Yeah.
continue this, but I do want to add one quick little thing, just to kind of wrap this all up, because we talk about food, we talked about big pharma, and I think it's worth mentioning that, there are traditional medicines that have been around for
Mm.
hundreds of thousands, for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, and they're not funded, right? Because like I said, you can't get funding to research meditation or acupuncture or things like this, because it's not going to give you revenue. But through observation trials over thousands of years, there is all this good stuff you can do. And I think it's also tying back to the foodstuffs. All of these kinds of non-traditional, non-Western medicines believe that food is medicine.
Mhm.
And one of the big Western
Western.
medicine, yeah, and it should be. Food is medicine. It's how you take care of yourself. It's
Yeah.
how you treat things. If you look at herbalism and teas, and that's all types of medicine.
Yeah.
And just looking at, again, now lately in the last maybe 2 decades, the idea that, oh, our gut microbiome is actually so
Mm.
important for our health and our
Yeah.
mental well-being. Like this, in Western medicine, they're like, look at this new innovation we've discovered. Finally, it's all down to the gut. Like, come on,
Yeah.
this has
Yeah.
been the case.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
known this.
Yeah. I
And it
agree.
just
Yeah.
comes down to eating a varied diet of fruits and vegetables and not
Yeah.
processed foods. And that's like the best thing you can do for your health, and then to support food systems that aren't shitty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shitty.
Just grow your own food.
They're
Just
hard to
grow your own
find.
food.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's the problem, isn't it? The non-shitty foods are
the
very
not
hard
shitty
to
foods.
find. Just if anybody's listening from Ireland, I know I keep referencing to Ireland, but that's where we are. I just started purchasing all my veg and all my fruit from a company called Green Earth Organics, and it's a 40-acre farm in Galway, so only an hour away from me. And everything they produce and sell is fully organic, and they're trying to establish this community that will order from them. You can order online, and that way they get to keep all of the money for that food that they have grown themselves. So they're trying to, I guess, to eliminate that need for those supermarkets. So there are solutions out there. It is hard to eat healthy. I love bread. And when I started watching videos about how bread is made and the amount of ingredients, I just decided I'm making my own. And I know I'm very privileged. I don't have kids. I don't have to, get them dressed to go to school in the morning. So now I just get up half an hour earlier and I bake my bread every morning. So maybe I'll put a video of my bread making skills at some stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be so
And you can be
nice.
our bread supplier.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies. It was a great conversation. I do think we nearly need a follow-up because there is a lot to unpack when it comes to food systems and
I have so
poison.
much more to say.
Just the
For now, thank you everybody for listening. And if you would like us to speak about any particular topic that you're interested on, pop us a message below or even send us an email on info@50shadesgoodinner.ie. See you next week.